played that Monster Hunter Stories 2 demo, and I think I remember telling you that like Monster Hunter Stories 1 was like a huge disaster in the West. Like it just sold like complete garbage. Um, and after playing the Monster Hunter Stories 2 demo and going back to play Monster Hunter Stories 1, which the most up-to-date version of that game is on the phone, to the point where I'm emulating it in BlueStacks and just put a guide on my channel as to how to play that with mouse and keyboard on BlueStacks if you don't want to play it on your phone. I'm starting to understand why it was a huge disaster in the West. And that's because...
Can you control it with a controller on your phone?
No.
Okay.
The phone controls are actually pretty good. The reason I switched to BlueStacks is because it does that thing where if your phone puts itself to sleep and drops the internet connection, the game goes, hey, you're not licensed, and then drops you out of your sleep state, and then you're back to the main menu. And also, I'd prefer to play it with mouse and keyboard, honestly.
Is the DS or 3DS version, does it look inferior?
Oh, fuck yeah. But if you emulate it, it looks about the same. Problem with the 3DS version is 3DS version doesn't have the high rank part of the game. 3DS version is like 2 or 3 patches behind the phone version.
Okay.
And is thus missing like dozens and dozens of monsters. So I'm starting to understand why it was a big bad in the West. And that's because even up until I was 10 minutes into playing the demo for the second game, I did not quite understand what it actually was. I thought... Oh, Paige, can you mute that mic? I thought it was a generic-ass RPG that you would get party members that were like, oh, I got a Tigrex, or oh, I got a Rathalos, or what have you, as you go through your adventure. Do you remember the last time we bitched about Sword and Shield, where I discussed what if instead of adding hundreds of Pokemon to these games, they had just kept innovating on these gameplay advancements over and over? And they made a small roster Pokemon with like 10 years of advancements. That's what this is. Monster Hunter Stories is a Pokemon clone.
Well, clearly.
And wait, you knew it was a Pokemon clone?
I assumed it was Monster Hunter's foray into the Pokemon style buddy adventure. That's how the trailer was marketed, yeah.
I don't know how I didn't realize it then. Because like it's not you get your buddy Rathalos and you go on an adventure. It is you're going out to get, like, essentially I think it's a list of 100, and in the second game it might be 120 or whatever.
I mean, whatever that first trade show was where the trailer dropped, where you saw the kid and then his little buddy dragon, it was like, oh yeah, there's your Pikachu, you know, and then you do it.
I thought it was you and that dragon for the game, because all the promotional stuff was just those two. Am I the only stupid idiot on this?
I only saw the trailer, but yeah, I don't know. Does it
Oh, everyone's saying I'm the stupid idiot.
Yep.
Oh.
I'm trying to be nice, but
okay. Well,
how does the battle system compare?
It's very different. So, it's doing something kind of like Temtem does, where the overwhelming majority of your fights are you and the monster. You're actually an active combatant, so it's a 2v whatever, you know, be it 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. And it's kind of a weird mix of like Persona 3 and some of that, because you most of the time don't directly control the monster.
Oh no.
No. I think it works fine. What it ends up being is that you have a rock, paper, scissors, which is power, speed, technique, and each one beats a different one and loses to the other. And outside of special attacks being a flame move or a poison move or what have you, all generic attacks are one of these three. And whereas you don't 100% directly control your monster, you'll know, for example, that an Arzuros will tend towards power attacks, or a Yunkut Ku will tend to uh, technical attacks. And thus you can plan, oh, I'm going up a Zamtrios. Zamtrios tend to do speed and technical, so I want something that does power and technical. What does power and technical? Right now in my party, my Kezu does power and technical, so I put the Kezu in. And if I want to change it, you can use what is essentially MP to take manual control and tell it what to do.
Okay, because I was gonna say initially sounds a little like Dokapon battle system ish with that RPS aspect of like, and then the tendencies of like, a random mage showed up. Guess what? He's probably gonna be casting, right?
Yeah.
But
so the monsters tend to have patterns. So like Zamtrios, it's not set in stone, but Zamtrios tends to do something like technical speed, and he'll mix and match different like special moves in there, but he almost always does technical speed.
So when your turn comes, it's just going to do an action based on its tendencies.
Yeah.
Or you can override it at the cost of MP.
Yeah, so there's a bar that builds up as you do well, and it's called kinship, and I can cash in, say, 15 KP to tell my monster to use a technical attack. Now, they have to learn these.
Okay.
But
okay,
like if it's doing a power attack and I'm like, no, in my gut I know that's going to lose out, I can make it do that, or I can make it do like a fireball, which is generic and doesn't interact with the system at all. And then your own character also is integrating into the system and using special moves associated with it.
Okay, so it's not like do a command and it's like, nah, I'm doing something else or some shit like that. Yeah. Okay. All right.
And on top of that, if your monster or your character is going to win the rock paper scissors against it, and the other character also did the same type of attack, you get to do a dual attack. And then once you fill that bar up, you can ride the monster, which heals you both, and then enables you to do essentially it's basically a Z move. Like you do a pose and the monster does like a custom move that does a shit ton of damage. I really like it, and it's really good. Monster Hunter Stories 1 is a little limited. And then Stories 2, like the big thing that I found in the demo is the ability to switch weapons. Because you've got great sword and shield, hunting horn, hammer, bow, and gun lance. And they all have very similar mechanics to how you would expect it to play out. And there was like in the Monster Hunter Stories 2 demo, the first like real fight is against a Yaku, and you're fighting it as normal until it picks up a rock. Its big fancy defensive move is that it picks the rock up to defend itself, at which point you have to switch to a hammer to knock the rock out of its hands.
Okay.
And it's just a really good synthesis of the classic Monster Hunter feel and mechanics into a turn-based RPG. It's a weird thing. Somebody asked me how I felt about it, and it was the only reason I'm getting excited was that it was a Pokemon game with animals I actually gave a shit about. And that's definitely part of it.
Certainly, yes. You mentioned on that note, actually, that, the early, like, whatever a new Monster Hunter thing starts, there's a catalog of fucking tons of them that you can, that are favorites, but, like, they have to start with, like, some essentials or whatever. Like, is it like that in this, where it's, like, they're missing, like, a fuck ton, or did they act? Well, you said a small roster, so I'm assuming they went with like a small number.
Monster Hunter Stories 1 has a roster of 100, and in some cases that includes the generic smaller monsters. So like a Bullfango, like which is like that bull, like small monster, or a Pulpo, or an Epsaroth. You know those Stegosaurus looking dudes. You can have that.
Okay,
but they hit a lot of the winners. People are saying 270 for Monster Hunter Stories 2. Wow, that's a lot.
That's Pokemon
that's
numbers.
A lot more.
That's Pokemon
That is
numbers.
Pokemon numbers. And it's just like, I don't know how much this means to people that don't play Monster Hunter, but in Stories 1, when I walked up to a mining spot and hit the button, and your character pulls out a pickaxe and got the pickaxe, and it made the noise that it's supposed to make, I marked out. And Stories 2 doesn't have that, because Stories 2 is going off of Rise. Stories 2 is like going off of the changes they made to World and Rise.
They're all tied into each other with the promotional stuff too. Yeah. Okay.
So instead, what happened is like the very first skill you learn in Monster Hunter Stories 2 for the Greatsword is the first skill that you learn for the Greatsword in Rise. Okay. And like, I'm like, oh, it's the thing. It was a lot of wow, it's the thing.
Do they have all the weapons? Is it actually?
No, they have the 6.
Okay.
In the original, in Stories 1, it's Greatsword, Sword and Shield, Hammer, Hunting Horn, and in the sequel, they're adding Bow and Gunlance.
Because what's cool about like adapting this franchise into that format is that it's not just the fact that there's the monster variety; it's the fact that the weapons are also as characteristic and as important to the brand as the monsters are. So you get to represent both. Yeah, that's dope. I always got the impression,
and it's like I went to a store in my game recently, and like the armor upgrade was the Banabra tuxedo made out of purple butterflies. I was like, oh, that stupid fucking armor. Okay, I guess I'm wearing that.
Like, I remember with the first one, I got the idea of like, so like a salaryman goes out and buys a copy of the latest hardcore Monhun thing, and then gets stories for his kid. And goes like, hey, look, let me introduce you to this world of Monster Hunter and shit.
But the reality of that was that actually he would get another copy of Monster Hunter for the kid.
Sure.
And the adult would actually be the one more interested in stories. Yeah, it's a Pokemon clone. I think it's a particularly good one, and I'm not sure how much I can tell you is because it's based on that thing that I like. Well, I've been spending just a shit ton of time with it. I think it's great.
I mean, people coming along and trying to fix the Pokemon take. Now we've got a handful of these things, or things that just go in a completely different direction with the idea of collecting a lot of different monster types. The comparison to how much better it is than Pokemon is a little less interesting to me than, say, how it is compared to, as you mentioned, Temtem or something like Cyber Sleuth, where it's a different style of game, but like it's still you and a buddy and like hundreds of variations.
Yeah, they made a solution. I'm going to use a solution in air quotes here to the Pokemon problem, which is in Pokemon, it's really easy to get Pokemon. It's just time consuming to get all the Pokemon. Like, you want to get a Pikachu, you see a Pikachu, you beat a Pikachu a little bit, you throw a Pokeball at it, right? Like, and it becomes a collecting thing. In stories, you are going into randomized little mini dungeons to steal eggs, and then it plays into like a gacha system. It's not monetary. It's just like you're searching for eggs. Is this the one you want? Is this the one you want? And you're looking at the stripes on the eggs or what have you. And so actually getting like a Lagombi took me like an hour earlier today. Like, I got a bunch of cool Kezus, but I wanted a Lagombi. And since you have tons of those, they have a system where you're basically playing eugenics with your monsters, and you're swapping skills between them. You're basically doing demon fusion with these things.
So I was going to say...
to put skills over onto them.
I was going to say, it's funny because demon fusion and like collecting demons in SMT, I don't, for some reason, even though it is, my brain doesn't like immediately put it in the same category, because simply of the cosmetic of these are not your pets. These are like not even your friends.
They're freak monster assholes.
They're demons you've made a contract with, and I don't give a fuck about kicking one to the curb and pulling back another more powerful one or fusing two of them into each other. You
In
know?
some cases, like in SMT3, they're demons you have forcibly entered into a contract with.
So it doesn't at all feel like you and your fun pet buddies at
In
all.
in in stories, it's so weird. Like it's clearly the demon fusion mechanic, and there's like this massive energy beam that comes from one as you steal its genes, so you can teach a Lagambi a fireball. And then they're like, and then that monster is let back into the wild.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, okay.
You sucked its brain out and then just sure.
I know the storyline, like the storyline of the first game is very simple. It's like about as simple as the old Monster Hunter games. The most interesting thing about them is that you're playing a tribe of riders who can befriend the monsters that otherwise would be hunted in all the games. And the guild of hunters is a different faction that are in some cases at odds with your personal philosophy. Like the start of the second game is during a cross-cultural event to foster goodwill with the hunting guild. They try and kill the island's Rathalos because they see a Rathalos and they go, "Oh, that's dangerous. We got to get it for the ecosystem."
So do they come across as the violent adults that are not cool enough to be friendly with the monsters?
They come across as like dumbass army characters.
Okay. Now, how does this fit in with the extremely planned, meticulous conservation efforts of the hunting when you're doing this from the opposite end in one of the proper games?
I have been told that the story of part 1 actually deals with poaching in universe and what poaching is about and non-guild poaching, etc.
Because if they framed everything you were doing for the past entire franchise as bad, that would be a problem.
I've run into some hunters in the first game, and they seem chill. They seem like non-psychopaths. But that doesn't mean that the Team Rocket of Monster Hunters is not out there.
Okay.
I'll let you know as I keep going. I freaking love this shit. I think particularly Stories 2, because it's getting a Steam release, which is an advantage over most of the other things in this genre.
Okay.
Is definitely going to be worth checking out. The demo is really good. Unfortunately, the demo's not out on PC. Demo's only out on Switch.
So, in what I was just describing there, the end results on the flop side is if you're stopping these unlicensed poachers and bloodthirsty hunters from doing their thing, that could then result in you're playing, say, Monster Hunter Rise or Monster Hunter Universe, and every once in a while, as you're hunting something, some adventurous, plucky-looking kid runs out in front of the monster and says, "No!" and holds his hands out and stops you from killing it.
Well, I should mention I don't think you've played Rise yourself, but Rise did implement a monster riding mechanic.
Yeah, that I did see.
The difference is that it is a forcible mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Like the riders in the story are like, we're becoming friends.
We're becoming pals.
The riding in Rise is, I'm going to use this fucking bug to attach wires to all of your limbs.
Yeah.
and corral you like an angry horse.
You are becoming what is essentially a brain controlling parasite for a moment and forcing it to do your will. That's not the same thing. But the idea of there being like we can be friends with the monsters, don't attack it, but these are happening in universe from two different franchise angles is a fucking weird one. if they don't
luckily
properly...
they tell you at the beginning that these tribes are very isolated.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I really dug it. I thought like all 3 of these games that I played, I think are great and people should check out.
Because
that's what I think.
The way it works is like if it's conservation, right? This is what you've told me. They come up with a number of Rathalos tags, and they go say, "All right, the population is now at such that we can afford and we need to cull 50 Rathalos this year, and no more than that. And so they give out 50 tags, and then everyone has to go out and do their thing. And you exactly and then you exactly keep a count on everyone's doing what they're doing their job, so you don't have the overpopulation and blah, 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 blah. So whatever they're befriending would then have to be in the retainer population. I don't know.
Well, I'll be real blunt here. The all the monsters that you have as your pal have to be domesticated from egg onwards. And the beginning parts of these games is still like, hey, there's an Arzuros blocking the road. Take your monster and go kick the shit out of it. And you're getting parts from your random battles.
All right.
Like,
think too
at
hard.
the end of the day, despite the fact that you are riding your monstie, you're still going out there to fuck monsters up because they're in your way.
Can your buddy lose a tail?
No, but you can actually make other enemies lose tails. That is a mechanic of your boss fights. So I'm going to be streaming that when it comes out in a couple weeks. And if you want to check that out, you can go to twitch.tv/PatStaresAt. That's where I'm at.